Yeah, sure.
Yay. Okay. I had two if that was okay.
Huh?
I had two if that was okay.
Yeah, nobody else raised their hand. Yeah, well, take your time.
As this gentleman pointed out, you have characters that you use throughout different novels. Do you plan that ahead, that I want to use Rivera here and I want to use the Emperor there, or does it kind of come naturally with the story?
The only time I planned it ahead was Dirty Job and You Suck have the same scene in them from the point of view of two different characters, and I knew I was going to be writing You Suck right after A Dirty Job, and that they took place in the same neighborhood, so I thought, this would be cool, is if this, this redhead sort of as a non sequitur wanders through the Dirty Job and shows up in Charlie's shop. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, A Dirty Job is about a guy who gets the job of being deaf and runs it out of a secondhand store in North Beach. And You Suck is about a girl who lives in North Beach, basically, and is a vampire. She used to work at Transamerica, and she became a vampire and didn't get an instruction book, and she doesn't sparkle or anything. So, but that's the only time I planned it. The other times it's just been, well, this would be cool. I was writing Lamb, and I was like, well, I need a monster. And I have Catch from my first book, and he's not doing anything. So, yeah, it's usually just, and it's kind of an Easter egg for those of you who have paid my rent for 20 years, because you go, I know that guy, and that's fun, isn't it? What was your other question?
Have you ever done stand-up comedy? And if so, has there been a joke that you've been dying to use in a book that you haven't found the right place for it? Because I noticed the humor, and that's what I love, but I've always wondered if there was a certain line or a certain joke you've been trying to put into a novel that took you forever.
Do you have a certain funny line you wanted to use?
I got a ton of dirty jokes.
I have things that I want to work into. Actually, I got to use one. What was it? When we were at Comic-Con, somebody asked me about getting an MFA in didn't mean to an MFA in writing, and I said I'm an autodidact, which means I like to be strangled when I study, and that's a really sort of, and I had been carrying that line around for years. There was just never, you got to, there's only going to be an appropriate time to use that once, and it was this is it. I can use the, because and you've got to have an audience that's smart enough to know, okay, he's talking about autoerotic asphyxiation, and an autodidact is someone who teaches. You got to have, there's a lot of backstory to go. You can't tell that joke to stupid people.
David Carradine joke?
Huh?
David Carradine joke?
Well, yeah, see? So you know what I'm talking about, right, yeah. Yeah, that's what, yeah, and you know what? When you laugh, I know you got it, or you pretend well. So it's all the same. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, I do have lines like that I go, well, I hope. And then now that I'm sort of slouching toward agedness, there are also jokes that I think I've carried for years that I've actually put in 2 or 3 books, because I think I got to use that line at some point, and then I look back at one of my books and I go, oh. Yes, I did use that 10 years ago. Damn. But yeah, there's stuff that you just go, man, I hope it comes. Last night we were signing books in Mountain View, and this guy had me sign a book for a girl named Tigger, and so I signed it Tigger, please. And I was like, when am I ever going to get to use that? It's not like we're going to get invited to a Winnie the Pooh convention. So yeah, you carry that stuff, you come up with that stuff, and hopefully you remember it, and then and then the trap will go off, the synapse will fire when the situation comes up. So sure. No, you had a question. We'll come back to you. Yeah, this one.
So, I'm always curious about how creative professionals collaborate with each other. Because working in a team, kind of the give and take and the compromises and negotiations, and creative people are just so independent-minded. So I'm just curious that when you guys are working on this together, how did the process work out for both of you? Some high points and low points, maybe.
Actually, I thought it worked out really well. I mean, Chris and I had collaborated before on a couple of projects. We had written another screenplay together, and we had done a comic polish on Coyote Blue, which I had adapted into a screenplay. That's how we met. I found Coyote Blue, the rights were still available. I brought it to a production company. They paid Chris, they paid me to write it, I was attached to direct it, and then Chris and I went off to Montana to location scout, which for me was really exciting because, you know, he was one of my new favorite authors and I didn't really know him at the time. And so he took me to all the places in the book, and it was really pretty awesome to see the specific places in the book that, you know, I had read about. And then when the Griff came around, I think at that point we had mutual respect for one another, at least, well, I hope so. And it was great. I mean, you know, we felt pretty confident divvying up the scenes and then reworking each other's material. And I'll let Chris take it from here because I can tell he's just
No, Ian has a really good sense of structure, which is essential in film. And I mean, you have to have it. They're very, although they don't tell you this, I mean, he teaches screenwriting, and probably, I hope you tell your students this. I mean, if you don't have like a first act break at 30 to 35 pages, no one will read the next 30 pages of your script. I mean, they're very strict about structure and subplot and all this different stuff. In novels, you just make that up as you go along, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And so, you know, his ability to work, you know, color within the lines, you know, helps me a lot because he has a much better, he outlines all of this stuff very, very detailed. I don't at all, or very, I do more now because I'm old, but I used to just not. I just carried a whole book in my head. So there's a complementary skill set. And the other thing is, like I said, we don't fret. I mean, it was just like, you write this, I write this, you write this, we write this. If it doesn't work, then we talk it out. But most of the time, it's just sort of, there wasn't a whole lot of chest pounding or, you know, kind of stuff. It was just divvy up the work, do it, and then glue it together. And because, again, you write, you know, screenplays and graphic novels in specific scenes, then it was just a matter of dividing the scenes up and writing them. And I think at times we may have said, you know, you've got a better handle on this character, you take those scenes, you know, rather than just going like every other one, we divided it up by where our strengths and weaknesses were. But that didn't mean if I was writing the Oscar scenes and he had a great joke for Oscar, we'd put it in, you know, and vice versa. But it was very harmonious, I guess. Not, you know.
It was actually a lot of fun too because we would, you know, I'd come up to Cambria for the weekend and we'd sit around his kitchen and just hash out the scenes, and you can see how funny he is here. And I mean, working with him, it's the same thing. It's just
especially when I had on a dragon suit for this. I'm awesome in a dragon suit. But yeah, sure.